Good day, YouTubers. Today, this is Glenn Stewart with the Gull War Illness channel, and today I'm speaking with Tim Short, another Gull War veteran suffering from Gull War illness. Good day, Tim.
How you doing, Glenn?
I'm doing okay. Hey, Tim, so talking about Gull War illness and the ailments that we go through and dealing with the VA, trying to get compensation and so forth, give me a little bit of background on you. What units did you serve, and approximately what time frames, if you can recall that?
I was with the 1st Cavalry Division, Headquarters Company, 3rd Battalion, 32nd Armored Division, and I was there from October until about October of 1990 to April of 91. I went over early and unloaded the boats. So I was in the port for a while, and then I hooked back up with my unit when they got there, I believe in November.
So what did you do while you were over there? What was your position?
I was a Bradley hull mechanic, and then I was also a recovery specialist. So I spent most of my time in a 88 recovery vehicle, recovering tanks and flipping them over, pulling the engines out, things like that.
Now, while you were over there, what was your experience? Did you hear any of the M8 alarms? Did you see any of the oil well fires or anything like that?
Yeah, sure. I saw the oil well fires. We weren't that close to the oil well fires. With regard to the M8 alarms, yeah, we heard those a lot initially. Like some of your other interviewers have said, we would go into Mach 4, and then after a dozen or so of those, they would tell us to stand down, and they were ignored after a certain point.
Sounds like pretty much everybody I have spoken with, they've been told the same thing. Were you guys told that the M8s were malfunctioning due to the environment?
Yes, that's correct.
Once you got over there, while over there and coming back, did you develop any kind of health problems while over there, or did you start developing health problems when you came back?
I had some over there. I did sick call at least once that I can remember. My memory's not that sharp anymore, but I did do a sick call, and I had swollen lymph nodes. And in hindsight, that's a pretty good symptom that you probably had a little something.
Now, when you came back, did your health problems get worse? What did you start noticing?
With me, it was a lot of joint pain and rashes. I have chronic rashes, and they're cyclic. They move all around my body, and they're pretty much 24/7. They'll move around. They might start on my foot and then go to my shoulder. They're not on my face. I noticed you had indicated that you get them on your face, but they stay away from my face, but I get them on the back of my head and then everywhere else on my body. When
did you become aware that you were suffering from Gull War illness?
Probably about, I'd say about 1999. By that time, I started researching it and used some of my college background to research it, and I realized that I probably had been exposed to something that wasn't agreeing with my body.
So none of the doctors you went to, none of them actually came out and said, hey, this is what your problem is. You found that on your own.
That's right. I did, yes.
So you pretty much did like I did, going from doctor to doctor, nobody giving you answers, and you basically took it upon yourself to try to figure out, hey, what's the problem here?
Right. Well, they, when I started fooling with the VA, they'd give me antidepressants and say, you got PTSD. So I think that's the common thread in all this. I think we hear that a lot.
Sounds like my story. Now, so has your health continued to get worse over time?
It has, yes.
Are you still working?
No, I'm not.
And have you submitted claims with the Veterans Administration?
Yes, I'm a service-connected 100%.
How well did that go? Did it take you years of fighting with them to get the service connection?
Yes, it took me 5 years.
Wow.
About 5 years to the day. Yeah.
Sounds like
a long time.
Oh, yeah.
I continue to help veterans to this day with their claims, and I can tell you I'm doing one right now that's a new claim with a younger veteran, and they're moving a lot faster, but I can tell they're log jammed. There's a lot going on up there, but they're not taking 5 years.
But that's mainly because, the ones like yourself that have gone through the process, you've learned so much, so now you're able to assist other veterans with saying, hey, you don't want to do this, you want to do it this way, and so on. Cut down on the mistakes that we did. Just like
right. And I was going to say, I should also note that I'm noticing guys from Enduring Freedom that are showing some of the same signs. I've got a friend in Cleveland that he's getting sick, similar to the one that you showed on your channel. And so I don't know. I mean, it may be a continuing exposure here because we're seeing the same stuff on recently deployed guys now.
That's one thing I'm fearing is that, all these veterans that have gone to Iraq, Afghanistan, and so on, they're definitely going to, they're going to come down with all kinds of exposures once they come back. One question I have, you are aware of the recent research that was released by Baylor University linking the PB pills with certain genetics, correct?
Yes, sir, I am.
Were you forced to take the PB pills?
I was, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we took those. We took those in a formation scenario. We took the in formation, and we were watched to take them. Now, I will say this too. I was in headquarters company, and some of our mechanics that would start out headquarters company with us, they were moved to line companies. And some of those guys would tell me that they were put in formation to take them, but they were throwing them over their shoulder, and they were allowed to. Leadership wasn't making them take them. Those guys didn't get sick. So I tend to believe a little bit of the research. Do I think it's all the PB pills? No, I don't think it's all just that, especially because the new guys are getting sick. But I do think that there is correlation, and there's some decent evidence in that new study. And I read about that PB study just 2 or 3 days ago.
Yeah.
There's news articles coming out about it.
Well, I think I think PB had a good portion to do. It had a good portion of it. But however, you take and mix all the other stuff. The burn pits, the oil fires, the sarin gas. The fact that they went in there and they found these bunkers full of chemical weapons, chemical and biological weapons, and what do? Like Kamazia, where they blew them up. Well, common sense says, okay, well, you have a chemical warhead. It's intended to impact and blow up and disperse the contents. Well, what do you think is going to happen when you blow them up? It's going to disperse the contents. Boy,
my unit is on the unit list, and we were in proximity to Kamazia, so I'm familiar with that. And I'm also familiar with, there was chemical alarms that went off during that time as well that were ignored. Yeah, I'm very familiar with Kamazia. And matter of fact, I went back after I researched and learned about Kamazia and found photos. I have actual photos that match the photos on the internet that show Kamazia being blown up.
Oh, wow. One of the things that I want to bring up to the Research Advisory Committee's attention, on the list of presumptives for Gull War illness, they have undiagnosed neurological ailments. But the thing I am getting from myself, my own experience, and from other veterans, is that if you submit a claim for any kind of neurological damage, unless it's ALS or MS, they're going to pretty much shoot you down. And one of the things that every single veteran I have spoken with is we have these muscle trembling, these twitches in our muscles, in our body, uncontrollable movement of the limbs or limbs not responding. Like, for example, myself, I've taken 2 dives down this stairway because my left leg decided, I'm not working anymore, and it just caved out on me.
Right. Yep.
And another thing is jolts of pain. Every single veteran I have spoken with, we get these jolts of pain. I get them every day, several times a day, where, I mean, you're talking about extreme, intense pain. It's not like an electric shot, but it's like a pain sensation that shoots out throughout your body. They tend to be, it can happen anywhere. I have them in my back, my stomach, my head, anywhere. Do you get any of that stuff?
Not so much of that. I do have twitching, and I also have something that I've not heard any of your other interviews indicate, but I have a cyst growing on my brainstem, and when I tried to file claims for that, they said that it was genetic, and I had evidence from a prior MRI that it wasn't there before, but they still declined that. They're ignoring the neurological portion of it. So yes, you're right about that.
You're not getting.
And also with the muscle twitching, my wife has developed that now. My current wife has developed muscle twitching, just like you're describing, and those sharp pains. I'm in the group of folks with Gull War Illness that believe that there is some type of contagion or contagious aspect to this.
Exactly. I've heard that several times where family members have come down with, GWI-type health issues. So are you getting the muscle twitches yourself?
Sometimes, but not the sharp shooting pains that you described.
What about...
and I don't get the muscle twitching as frequently as she does.
What about... the involuntary movement of arms, or, your arms or legs not cooperating with you, suddenly giving out or not responding?
Yes, I do get that. And also I have a lot of neuropathy. I used to play drums a lot, and I have a hard time holding the drumsticks now. My hands are numb a lot of times. Hands and feet will go numb. I wanted to describe, you typically ask the guys, how they figured out that they were sick, and I wanted to talk a little bit about how I figured it out. I got a degree in turf grass science and in college after the war, and we learned a lot about pesticides and things like that and the modes of action of pesticides. And I began working on golf courses and getting really sick. Like I would get really sick if I was around, after they had sprayed certain pesticides. And so I started backtracking and realized that organophosphate pesticides were making me sick. I mean, I would get dizzy, I would drool, my eyes would water, and it wouldn't affect anybody else. Mm-hmm. And so my research indicated that I probably had some type of organophosphate contamination environmentally at some point, and that's how I was able to put those two together. Another one that I found was a product called toluene, which is in battery cleaner. I was doing some stuff with battery cleaner and got the same type of sickness, dizzy, fell down, wanting to throw up, and eyes watering. And when I did research, toluene is used as a propellant in rocket fuel, and it was either in Scuds or in Patriots. And I had situations where I was working underneath where a Scud may have been intercepted, and so I knew that I had been around that product as well.
Yeah, there have been several veterans telling me about chemical sensitivity, and
yeah,
I get it somewhat, but mine has been pretty mild compared to some of the other testimonies I've heard. There's certain cleaners or certain chemicals I get around that, yes, they make me sick to my stomach and nauseous. I mean, and yeah, I ask people around, the people that are around me, they're not being affected at all, and it's like, okay, you kind of feel like the little canary that they took into the coal mines. Yeah, it kind of makes you feel like that. Okay, well, if Glenn's starting to come down with all kinds of stuff here, if he's starting to feel ill, then we know there's something in the air that may not want to be around.
That's right. Now, and I'll tell you another thing I'd like to talk about, too, is that, whenever I began getting sick, I used Facebook to connect with many of the people that I served with, and the ones that were still alive I communicated with, and some of them had symptoms, some of them didn't have symptoms. All of the people in my unit still have their records, but my records from service have all been either destroyed or lost, is what the government tells me, and the record center in St. Louis. Over the past 20-some-odd years since the war, I've only met one other person. Just recently, this month, I met another fellow from Gulf War that has Gulf War illness, but he's also service-connected for PTSD, and his records are missing, too. So there's a bunch of records missing, but the fact that only mine are missing from my unit seems very bizarre.
I can tell you from my own experience, one thing that happened to me was, when I started complaining on active duty about health problems, before I get out of the military and retired, I went ahead and, you know how you go from, they give you your medical, personnel, and dental files, and you go from station to station now, processing and so on.
Yes. Okay,
so what I did, just to be on the safe side, I made a little detour by a copier machine, and I copied everything.
Well, see, I'm fourth generation military, and I knew that. I knew to do that. However, when I out-processed, they didn't give me any records.
See, I was glad I
had no. They were never in my possession, but I knew better. I knew to copy them. But didn't have them. They didn't have them.
So they basically yours disappeared before you even were able to out-process.
That's correct.
Okay. See, I made copies of mine, and the interesting thing that I found was when I started doing all my VA claims and all that, I requested copies from St. Louis from, the personnel office, requesting copies of all my military records, personnel and medical files. And when they came up, in comparison to what I already had, there was a lot of documentation that was absolutely missing from those records. The medical records.
Sounds like they had been sanitized of sorts.
It pretty much looked like basically what I ended up getting was like a summary of what I already had in possession.
Interesting.
My goal, right now, I'm permanent and being paid at 100% rate, but I still continue to fight because of the fact that I know what it's like to suffer in so much pain that you're not suicidal, but you feel like, man, if death would have come for me tonight, I would have no problem with that. You know what I mean? And, a lot of people don't understand that. And the fact that I know what it feels like, and I know there's many others just like you that know what that feels like, that's disturbing. That's very disturbing. So that's one of the that's the main reason I continue to do this, is because I know that there's hundreds of thousands out there that are still enduring this pain, going through this, and, we need to push the issue with the VA to find better treatments for us to give us a better quality of life. A lot of people think that it's all about the money. Oh, you just want to get a paycheck from the VA, No, it's not. I want my life back. We were robbed, literally robbed of our life, our health.
I pursued claims for the medical care. I wanted, having grown up in the military, and the military was all I knew. My grandfather retired from the military. My father, they needed to take care of what their side of the commitment. I opposed, when they said it was time to go to war, I went. And so I pursued claims for them to continue medical treatment. But even to this day, I don't get the medical treatment that I need. It's all bypassed. And one other thing, too, that you had asked people, you had asked somebody before in an interview, had they ever been told by a VA doctor that Gulf War illness doesn't exist? I was actually told that about 2.5 years ago during a C&P, and there was a Gulf War illness poster behind me on the wall. And they said that it doesn't exist. And I turned around and said, you know how much it costs to print this full-color poster? And you're going to argue with me right in front of this poster?
Yeah, I had a VA doctor not long ago at the emergency room at the VA hospital. He had the guts to tell me that there was no such thing. He referred it as Gulf War syndrome, and needless to say, he picked the wrong individual to try to say that to. So I had to proceed to give him the Gull War Illness 101 crash course. And it was kind of funny because, you know, he sat there trying to tell me, well, I'm a member of so-so board and this and that. I was like, okay, that's totally irrelevant. You know, you could be the chairman for the National American Cancer Institute. You could be, you know, you could have 5 PhDs in all that stuff in cancer research. But if you have not touched the research on GWI, you have not viewed it, you have not read it, you have not researched it, then you have no knowledge of it. So,
right.
You know, it's like, that's just common sense. Just because the doctor has a PhD does not mean that they know everything there is to know about medicine.
That's right. That's right. And I can tell you this, now that the Research Advisory Committee, Congress has cut ties with the VA so that they can actually do their work on Gulf War illness, and VA can't dictate what the outcomes are, we're going to see more of their efforts in research that's positive for us. The VA has affected those decisions, and they've told these doctors, and in a lot of my cases, these weren't medical doctors, these weren't MDs, these were nurse practitioners.
Oh,
some of them
yeah.
were younger than me.
Oh, yeah.
They were younger than me. They couldn't possibly know about the Gulf War. They were children. They had diapers on during the Gulf War.
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest things they try to do is try to push it on, well, hell, for 23 years. Look at 23 years they try to push it off as being a mental condition, you know, a psychosomatic in nature. I would have to say it finally broke open. Pandora's box was open when Dr. Guillaume with the Georgetown University published research showing that Gulf War illness veterans, when they did fMRI scans of the brain, they noticed that GWI vet had normal brains, except they showed a abnormal amount of white matter in the brain. You know,
right.
everybody has white matter, but in comparison with the general population and other veterans, they compared it against other veterans, they noticed, okay, hey, wait a minute, there's something here, because I'm noticing in this group of GWI vets that there's an unusual amount of that white matter in there.
Now, Dr. Haley from the University of Texas also did those studies, I think before the Georgetown studies, and I contacted his office and asked if I could pay for, out of my pocket, an MRI, that particular type of MRI, and they said they couldn't because I guess they get government funds.
Yeah.
And so I've asked at several VA facilities, could I have, I believe it's a functional MRI, if I could have that test done, and they won't give me the test. So I'm suspect of why you wouldn't give you a test if you show this cluster of symptoms, why wouldn't you get access to a test like that?
And see, that's when everything started clicking with me, was because, you know, I ran into Anthony's 91outcomes.com page, and a lot of the stuff a lot of the stuff he was posting on there, I mean, it was like, it matched up. It was paired up with everything I was going through. And then when Georgetown released the study about white matter, it so happened that I had a PET scan done because of the fact that I had gone through neuropsych doctors, pain specialists, you name it. I had gone through so many doctors trying to figure out why I get these headaches, and none of the medication they were giving me was working. I mean, I was even taking Imitrex injections on my leg trying to curb the headaches, and
Wow.
I went through all that, and they finally said, look, we're going to have to dig deeper into this guy's brain, see what the heck is going on. And sure enough, when they came back with the PET scan, it came back and they said, well, Glenn's brain looks normal, except we notice an unusual amount of white matter in his brain. And then, right then, it was like, boom, there it is.
Yeah, yeah. So a PET scan was able to show those. I didn't realize that would do that. I thought it would have to be a specific machine. And also, when I contacted Dr. Haley's office about that, he said that the VA had approved, I think he said 17 VA facilities to get the fMRI machine, but I've yet to see that in any that I've requested of that.
I haven't submitted, since I had the PET scan, I have not requested it, but I've heard that from other veterans too, that, they're having a hard time trying to get their fMRIs done.
Now, I do have, they do have me on a once-a-year brain scan to measure that cyst in my brain, and it's non-operable, so they just basically, we measure it, and they track any new symptoms I may have to the size of it.
So is that like a lymphoma tumor that is trying to grow?
It doesn't appear that it's growing. I got about 3 years of scans in now, and it hasn't grown. They're not saying, they can't say definitively whether it's cancerous or not. They just see it's in there. It's on the brain stem. It'll eventually affect things like breathing and eating and vision and things like that. So as something like that changes, and we get the yearly scan, if the size has increased, it may be, that's probably what'll kill me. I've come to terms with that.
So they've said it's kind of like a fatty tissue tumor. They don't know, but it's just a ball of fat tumor.
Yeah, that's a pretty good description.
Okay, exactly. Now, see, I've already had one removed from my spine, in the middle of my spine, and this thing was about the size of like a big strawberry. It looked like a big strawberry. And they were.
I saw the picture on that.
Now here's the kicker. I have another growing. I have one on my right shoulder blade, which they took measurements, and they're keeping on that. And they're already talking about doing surgery to cut that one out too. That's the thing. I'm hearing this over and over from other GWI vets. Is we are constantly coming down with, lipoma tumors, and that's not normal.
No. We had, when we first got back, we had a soldier. He was a little bit older than, I was only 21 when I came back from the war, but this guy was in his early 30s, and he died of lymphoma cancer within 6 months of getting back, and nobody really, when I look back on it now, I know that was a sign, but he was a fair-skinned guy, and he developed cancer almost immediately, and he withered away and died.
Oh, hopefully, I'm hoping yours doesn't progress, same as mine. Hopefully mine will, just stay still there. I mean, it's kind of gross when you feel it, it feels like something trying to grow out of my shoulder there, but as long as it...
Hey, let me ask you, I got a question for you. I also have gum disease and degenerative bone disease. Is that something else that you've heard from anybody?
Oh, yeah. Okay. And I have it myself. Matter of fact, I have a dental appointment coming up next month because of the fact that all my gums, they just hurt like crazy. And degenerative disc disease, they fused my C5 and C6 discs because they believe that my discs were they're degenerating. And they believe that they were starting to pinch my nerves between those two discs. So they ended up boring it out to make room for the nerves to get it off, and they fused the disc together. However, that has done absolutely nothing. And it hasn't done anything because of the fact that they didn't know what exactly they were dealing with. They didn't realize that, okay, yeah, he's having degenerative disc disease, but it's also related to GWI.
Right. What I didn't understand when I did a claim for gum disease, and most people probably wouldn't realize this, but the VA doesn't recognize gum disease as a service connection. Interestingly enough.
Yeah. They. I seriously doubt they will.
No, they probably won't.
Pretty much, the mentality still today. As a matter of fact, in one of my CMPs, where I submitted claims for fibromyalgia, IBS, and so on, blah, 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 all these items, in the doctor's own words, the problems that I was having could be attributed to me getting old, and, when I read that, I was like, well, okay, that makes no sense because let me see. I have active duty medical records at age 32 saying, hey, my muscles, my bones are hurting me, I'm having memory loss, I'm having all kinds of digestive problems, heart palpitations. I was like, okay, so is 32 years old the new old? Like, really?
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
I guess that the hope is they can blame it on old age. I mean, think about this, Glenn. If they approved a functional MRI with anybody that showed more than 2 signs in that cluster of GWI symptoms, if they approve that, the implications of that is incredible. I mean, you're talking about 250,000+ people.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, there's that many people already on the books. They just haven't listed as PTSD patients. But there's already 250,000 people from Gulf War 1 that are on the books. So why not test them?
Well, and the other thing is, I mean, that's 250,000 that we know of. But I can tell you right now, every single time, I always wear my Desert Storm veteran hat whenever I go to the VA hospital, the VA clinic, because it never fails. I'm constantly running into veterans of the first Gulf War, and we get to talking about, typical, war stories like, oh, yeah, I was there, blah, 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 and, and then I'll start asking about health problems, and they're like, yeah, I came back, and I don't know what's going on. I started having all this diarrhea and this and that and blah, 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 and then we compare notes, like, they don't even know, they're not even aware of the fact that they are suffering from Gull War illness.
That's correct. I've witnessed that as well. That's right. And some of them think, well, it's just old age because they've been told that, or some of them think that they just, they don't put the connection together. I mean, as you know, it's a lot of work to research and figure out what's going on with you, and you don't get any help.
In doing the research, one of the big things I have learned is, when you go online researching, there's a lot of noise out there, what I call trash news. Mm-hmm. And one thing I've learned is how to be very discerning of what is real, valid, compared to what is a bunch of, garbage, just BS, whatever,
Well, what are your thoughts then on the studies that have been done by Garth Nicholson with regard to mycoplasma infections in GWI patients? Are you familiar with that?
Yes, and I have a couple of his videos on on one of the playlists.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, see now, here's what I see. Because having said that, I talked to Dr. Haley's office, and they couldn't give me the MRI. And now Dr. Nicholson, he used to test the blood of patients who were in the Gulf War that said they were sick. Well, he can't test blood anymore, and there's a common denominator between why both doctors can't help us anymore. and that is that the government gives them money to fund research so they can no longer actually give us answers.
Yeah.
They can control them from giving us the answers. And
Yeah.
I think he has some powerful research. And there are labs currently that you can pay out of your pocket and be tested for these mycoplasma infections, and I believe there's something to this.
Yeah.
You know, the most recent study I've seen, over 80% of the veterans that complained of symptoms had at least one mycoplasma infection. Some of them had 3 and 4. And these were all weaponized versions. These are not mundane, normal mycoplasmas. These are weaponized ones.
Oh, yeah, don't even get me started on that stuff. Well, you have to look at the fact, everybody knows by now, the fact that when it came to the first Gulf War, you remember during the Iran-Iraq War, and how Iraq was using chemical weapons during the war, and they used it against the Kurds.
Yep.
Okay? Now, where did they get that stuff? I will tell you.
They got it from us.
Yeah. We're the ones that sent them that stuff.
That's how they knew what to give us with the PV pills, or what they thought would work, because we had sold it to them. I mean, there's receipts. You can look on the internet and find receipts where we transferred these weapons to them within 30 days.
Well, yeah. All you have to do is read the Regal report. Look at the
Right.
Regal report, and if you look at, okay, well, let's clarify. They did not ship the warheads, you know, they didn't take and ship them, oh, okay, here's one each chemical round. But what they did instead, through government contracts, using third-party vendors and so on, is they sent them all the components, everything that needed to put this together. They sent them the instruction manuals, the blueprints. Basically, it's kind of like, you know, when you go to, you know, you go to Walmart and you buy a cabinet, it comes in pieces, you know, and then there's the instruction manual. Okay, so that's basically what they did. You know, that was all shipped to them.
So what were some of the first places that were blown up during Desert Shield, during the air campaign? Some of the first places blown up were these facilities that were putting those pieces together.
Yep.
So one thing I noticed, we spent a lot of time right by the berm. We could see the berm. We could see Iraq from where we were sitting. And the airplanes would come over, and they'd turn their lights off just about the time they hit the berm. And about 5 or 6 minutes later, you'd see the sky light up. Well, about 10 minutes later, you'd hear the chemical alarms going off. In hindsight, there's your sign right there.
Well, I totally agree. I mean, with Dr. Nichols', you know, assessments and the fact that they, you know, when it comes to warfare, they're going to find ways. The wars of the future are going to be fought at the cellular level, you know. Mitochondria, you have to look at. I have no doubt they weaponize that stuff. Hell, if they can find a way to weaponize a donkey fart, they probably will.
That's a good one. The scary part, though, I think, is with the mycoplasma. They've kind of made it stealthy, and they've made it contagious when they weaponized it by inserting a HIV gene into the DNA, and that's spooky.
Well,
that's some scary stuff there. And
and one of the studies released not long ago, last year, talked about how the mitochondria of GWI vets had been affected and altered. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the mitochondria is the microplasma, is the, you know, it's the power cell. That's the gasoline tank. So if the gasoline tank, if you turn around and you throw water in there, what's going to happen to the vehicle? It's going to stall out. So, you know, that's what's happened to us. Each and every cell in our body is being affected. Our own body is attacking our own body. Our own body is working against us instead of with us.
I've heard you mention the CoQ10. I started taking that on my own. I can't get anybody to actually say I should take it, but I believe the research on that it will help with that cell development and help rebuild that. And it could be, it's not a cure, but it could help ease some of the symptoms.
Yeah, and talking about the CoQ10, I'm going to tell you, there's a couple of things. I can tell you from where I was to where I am now, it's not the miracle pill, just like you said. You know, it's not going to cure you or anything like that. But the CoQ10 has definitely made my flare-ups more manageable, you know, more tolerable. My everyday life, the combination between, this is what I've done. I take the CoQ10 supplement. I take vitamin C and vitamin D because every single time I test, they run blood tests, I'm always coming up vitamin D deficient. So I've had to take the supplements for that. I watch my diet. Instead of taking, I stay away from sugar products, GMOs, processed foods, anything like that. Chips, that's out of the question. Sodas, stuff like that, I don't do it. And I've noticed a difference between changing my diet and the supplements as towards now than back then. I still get the flare-ups, you know, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I get the flare-ups, and when they hit, they knock me down, and I'm pretty much in bed all day. I've been able to take control at this point. I've been able to say, you know what, I'm not going to let this GWI kick my butt, and I'm not going to just lay down and drop dead. I'm not going to do that.
Now you did that through keeping a journal, did I hear that correctly? That you kept like a food journal, and I think that's a great idea for guys that are thinking about, you know, what's going on with me. You keep a food journal, and you can tie your flare-ups to that.
Well, and
speaking of GMOs, go ahead.
Well, and one of the things that I did notice that I wasn't even aware that I was doing this, right, is I kept a food diary. I try to figure, okay, what it has to be food intake, something I'm consuming that's causing me to bloat up and just be miserable like hell. Mm-hmm. And I started writing down what I consumed, you know, how much, volume, and so on, what time frames. Maybe it might even have to do with me eating dinner at 6 p.m. versus 8 p.m. and so on. And little by little, I was able to pinpoint certain things down. Milk, I love milk. I could, if it was up to me, I would drink close to over a half a gallon a day. These days, no, I don't touch it. I mean, I can still drink. I'll drink about maybe half a glass. That's about it in the morning, but then that's it. But I would get this craving, like I would get this real crazy craving for milk, and I was just down in this stuff. And little did I know that I was actually making it worse.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and you wouldn't know that if you didn't keep a food journal. You just keep on consuming it. Typically, our bodies crave something that they need, but with us, you can't. You know, some things you can't have, like the GMOs. When I was in college, GMOs were on the rise, and they would send chemical salesmen into college to teach us about GMOs and how great they were going to be, and blah blah blah. But I've seen right through that. I mean, there are actually. You could actually eat plants that still have a little organophosphate gene in them, and it could make us really sick.
Exactly. You know where I get a lot of my fruits and vegetables from these days?
Where's that?
I go to the farmer's market.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, I would have done that, but I just grow my own now. So I buy non-GMO seeds, and I grow my own.
Oh, yeah, exactly. If it's a big corporation, you know, whatever, like even the tomatoes that you buy at a grocery store that are, you know, covered in wax or whatever, I don't trust it. And then when you pick up these boxes that are supposed to be, you know, like even, you know how they're constantly bombarding you with, yogurt is healthy for you. That's a healthy food. Look at the ingredients. It's like, are you kidding me? That thing has more chemical ingredients in it than stuff you throw in the lab rat.
Yeah, you're right. You are right about that.
If I can't pronounce it, I'm not going to eat it. If I want to go to the grocery store and I want to buy a bag, some green beans to cook with my dinner, I want the content to say green beans. That's, nothing more, nothing less.
Did you notice any of your food diary coinciding with your rash at all?
Really, compared to other veterans, I don't get the rashes. What I get is, I don't know if you've seen the photos I have uploaded, but I have these bumps that cover my
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, I get these bumps that cover practically my entire body, and I'm having to use facial cleaners just to try to control it and keep it out of my face. But food-wise, no, I haven't noticed anything that causes these to spread or anything like that.
Well, I'm going to send you some pictures. I take pictures every time I flare up with hives, so I've got hundreds of them, maybe have thousands of them. But I'm going to send you a handful of pictures of the rashes. They look a little different than what I've seen on your page,
Okay.
But similar to other guys.
By all means, I'll be glad to post them. Is it okay if I go ahead and post them?
Sure. Yeah, no.
Okay.
Again, I think these videos and I think pictures like that will help guys, like the ones that you run into at the VA hospital. They don't know what's going on with them. Eventually, they might stumble upon something like that, and it might help some people.
Talking about diet and all that, IBS, do you suffer from IBS?
No, I don't have any kind of digestive problems.
And see, that's another thing about GWI, is the fact that it's not a one mold fits all.
That's right.
It's not like a lot of other illnesses where, if you're talking about diabetes, here's how it manifests. Step 1, stage 1, stage 2, and so on, and it's practically across the board. When it comes to GWI, one thing I have learned is that we all are affected we have a lot of similarities. However, there are a lot of differences, too.
That's right. And see, what I've noticed with the VA is they have the cluster of symptoms, and if you don't have all of them, then they don't fool with you as far as GWI. They want you to have all the symptoms, and we're all different, and it's going to affect everybody a little bit differently. You're right about that.
So it's basically, okay, well, if you don't have, the mentality still is, well, if you don't have fibro and IBS and memory loss and this and that, then you don't fit the mold. And no, that's not right. That's not right at all.
You just may have been, that person may have just been more predisposed to it, and it's going to affect everybody differently.
Exactly. I mean, it's the same thing, common sense. It's the same thing as with, different people react differently to different exposures. Most people, let's look at it in a logical perspective. Most people are allergic to poison ivy and poison oak. You touch that stuff and you're going to break out in a rash like crazy, right? I don't. I can wipe my butt with that stuff, use it like toilet paper, and yeah, it'll turn red and kind of irritate me for about 10, 15 minutes, but then it goes away. Now, see?
Well, I don't either. It doesn't affect me either. That's interesting. Yeah.
That's the same thing. See, we all don't fit the same pattern. We all don't fit the same mold,
If I was to walk through the perfume department in a department store, I'm liable to lose consciousness and pass out from the fumes.
I get
They may not.
I get the same thing too. I get around all the perfume and all that, and it starts to make me nauseous, and I feel like, oh, I can't breathe. I need to get the hell out of here.
Have you ever had any episodes where you've lost consciousness?
No, I've had episodes where the pain that I was telling you about hit me so hard that I've had to grab onto something in order not to fall down on the floor. You know, like I remember one time going through Home Depot, I'm walking around with somebody in the store, and one hit, and I don't remember what it was. It was one of the displays or whatever, and I clawed that thing. Like I was, you know, I put my death grip on that display, and I dropped down to one knee like that.
Interesting. I've had at least 2 occasions where I've been in a store or something, and the store just starts spinning, and next thing I know, I wake up, there's a paramedic over me, and I've hit my head and split it open. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I know a GWI vet here locally that has happened to him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're not alone with that. Oh, memory.
It happens.
Memory. Mine tends to be more of a cognitive issue. However, there are times where memory it's shot, right? I remember, I'm going to tell you, this happened to me 2 times. I got off work. I'm going to my car, got in my car, turned on my car, you know, and I'm ready to go home, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, time to go home. And then all of a sudden, it was like somebody took the road map and erased it. I had no idea at that time whether to go left on the main road or go right. Have you ever had anything like that?
A little bit. Sometimes I forget where I'm going, but not quite that bad yet. I don't know. I kind of expect to see that in the future as I get older too, but a little bit. You know, I'm not to the point where I need to write everything down really yet, but I can kind of see it's creeping up on me.
And see, after about 10, 15 minutes, the first time it happened to me, I was almost at the point of freaking out, but after about 10 to 15 minutes, all of a sudden, boom, it clicked back in. I was like, oh, okay. And it's so weird because I knew, you know, when it happened to me, I knew exactly the building I lived in. I knew what my apartment looked like. I had a bathroom, the whole 9 yards. You know, I knew what I had in the refrigerator. But it was like, where'd the road map go?
Yeah. And again, I think going back to what you said about how it affects different people different ways, I think that's another one of those things that, you know, I'm not so much into having cognitive problems or speech problems, so to speak, or memory, but, you know, the other things that are similar, like rashes and bone disease and gum disease, and it's just affecting everybody kind of differently based on, you know, their genetic makeup.
Genes definitely have a role to play in this too, and I've been saying that for years. I've been saying that for a couple of years, because genetics is the only explanation, logical explanation I could come up with as towards why is it that people that were in my exact same unit, we took the same shot, took the same PB pills, exposed to the same environmental exposures, chemical, the whole 9 yards. You know, we were pretty much, you talk about carbon copy.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it you take Soldier A, Soldier B, Soldier C? Soldier A, he's dead. You know, he died 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Soldier B, being me, why did I come down with all these health problems? And then you have Soldier C, who has no problems at all. You know, he is working full-time and going around riding a motorcycle and rock climbing the whole 9 yards and like nothing. That's the only thing that could explain that was genetics. There had to be a genetic factor in there.
Right. So I'm guessing you had the shots too in country.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it, I think you said, were you in the 1st Cavalry Division as well?
Yeah.
Okay. I remember those. I remember those shots vividly. And you know, you're standing in the middle of the desert, and there's a table there with a couple of medics, and I was young back then, and I was not going to take them. I didn't want to take them, and they threatened to put me in the incarceration if I didn't take them.
Yeah, they told us flat out that when it came to the vaccination, the PV, all that stuff, you have a choice. Your choice is this. You take them, or you go over to the next desk right over there, sign your Article 15, and then when we get back, we'll deal with a court-martial. So that, that was your choice.
Well, what I thought, the reason why I was objecting was because they were wanting us to sign something. I don't know if I should even say this on the air, but, I mean, you're going to ask me to sign something saying I'm not taking it. Well, then there's got to be, I was just young, but there's something suspect about that. Why would I sign something saying I'm not taking it? It obviously affected people. It has to.
I can't even remember if I signed something or not. I mean, I'm not gonna say yes or no. I don't remember, but I know we had to. That was the only choice. You had to take it.
It's kind of unfortunate because at that point you really had nowhere to go. You were there, captive audience.
Yeah. I don't regret serving my country. I don't regret doing what I did because we know what we did was with our heart. We know what we believed in to be right. So I don't, I don't feel guilty about that or anything like that. However, when it comes to serving under the false pretenses of, we're going to liberate the people of Kuwait. Like, yeah, right. Tell that to some other idiot that wants to believe that bull crap.
That's why it sent me in a tailspin when they wanted to go get weapons of mass destruction. I'm like, wait a minute, we blew them up at Camisea. They're gone. We ingested those things.
Yeah, but then when we got back, all of a sudden, remember all over the news, like, well, we couldn't find any WMDs.
Yeah, I'll tell you another thing, too. Why, when we came back, was there a blood ban for Desert Storm veterans? We weren't allowed to give blood to the Red Cross. Do you remember that?
Yep.
And I don't hear anybody talking about that. And I don't know if it's still the case, but I've not tried to give blood, but I wonder if they still ask that question.
Well, actually, this is the last thing I heard about that. Number one, there was a donation ban. You're not allowed to donate. Then they lifted it. However, the last time that I tried to donate blood, I had a employee from, I'm not going to mention which organization, but I had an employee from the blood bank actually told me directly, when nobody else around, said, look, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but whenever you fill out the form, blah, 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 and indicate that you served during the Gulf War, this, that, we don't use that blood. It's disposed of.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I bet it is. I bet somebody's sitting in a little cubicle somewhere looking at it.
But these days, even if they lift a ban, I don't donate any blood. And see, they would love my blood. I'm O positive. I mean O negative. So, I'm the only universal donor. However, knowing what I know now about Gulf War Illness, I won't do it because I cannot I can't have that in my conscience that there's something in my body that I could most likely pass on to somebody else.
That's true. That is very true.
Blood donations, I don't do them. Let me see. Anything else?
No, I think this is going to benefit many people.
Absolutely. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap it up, and I'm going to go ahead and thank you, Tim, for taking the time and, the opportunity to do this.